Money makes the world go round. But have you ever stopped to think about how money works and why we even use it? More importantly, can you talk about money in English and use English phrases related to money with confidence? This is one of the most practical and fascinating topics to learn about. And today, I'm going to go through key words and phrases related to money and also give you great listening practice so that you can learn a little bit about the history of money in a way to help improve your English. Money isn't just something we use every day. It's a key topic in everyday English conversations. Whether you're talking about your salary, how much you earn, discussing the economy, or simply budgeting for a trip, knowing how to talk about money in English is essential. Today, I'll take you through the history of money, how it's created, and the key terms and phrases you'll need for real-life conversations about spending, saving, earning, and investing. By the end of the episode, you'll not only have a better understanding of money, but you'll also have the confidence to use phrases about it naturally in conversations. So, get yourself a drink or relax wherever you are, or continue working out in the gym, and let's get started. My name is Jack from Fluency. This is the Fluency podcast, and whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'm so glad you're here. Section 1 is all about the evolution of money. So we're going to give a brief history of this and then talk about some of the key phrases that you can use, and then also some speaking and listening practice. Now, before money existed like we know it today, people traded goods and services directly. And this was called a barter system. A barter system. Now, you can barter with somebody in order to exchange goods or services. For example, you can imagine in England 1,000 years ago, someone might trade some wheat for a goat. So they say, I have this wheat, can I exchange it for your goat? But bartering had its problems, because what if the person with the goat didn't want wheat? They didn't need this wheat. That is where money came in. And the first forms of money were coins made out of precious metals, for example, gold and silver. Now, here is a key phrase. These metals had intrinsic value, meaning their worth came from the material itself, the gold and silver. After that came paper money, which was easier to carry but relied on trust. The value was backed by governments or banks. To be backed by something means that the paper money could be exchanged for the gold amount that it says on that paper. So even though people had paper money, they still could exchange this for gold. But now, paper money is backed by governments or banks. And today, everything is more or less digital. And we also have digital currencies like Bitcoin. So some key phrases here, if you want to talk about this, are barter systems were one of the earliest forms of trade. Paper money replaced coins. And cryptocurrencies are a new form of digital money. Next, we're going to talk about the dollar versus gold, how money works and how it is created. And then we're going to have some very specific English phrases related to money. So next, dollar versus gold. Like we mentioned before, for thousands of years, gold was considered the ultimate store of value. And this is because it had intrinsic value. It's durable, which means it's tough. Limited in supply, which means there's only so much of it. And very importantly, it is universally recognized. So people all around the world considered gold to be important. But most modern currencies, like the dollar, the pound, and the euro, aren't backed by gold anymore. Instead, they are called fiat money, fiat. So think of the dollar today as fiat money. And what's interesting is fiat money has value because the government says it does and people trust it. So think about the US dollar. It's just a piece of paper or a number on a screen. It's simply a number on a screen. But we trust it because we know we can use it to buy things. We can exchange it for goods and services. So when you talk about money in English, you might hear people debating or arguing, talking about whether fiat money is reliable or if we should return to a gold standard where the money is backed by gold. So understanding these terms will help you join in these conversations. Next, we're going to briefly talk about how money works and how it is created. So modern money isn't just printed, which means it's not just created. In today's system, we have a debt-based system. A debt-based system. A debt is spelt D-E-B-T, but we just say debt. And debt is something that is owed to somebody else. So the system, the monetary system today, is all about debt. And in fact, modern money is largely created through lending. Now, I'm sure in English classes in the past, you've learned the difference between lend and borrow. So to lend someone something means that you give them something, but you expect it back. And it can be used with money. So banks can lend money. You can even use the term loan, which means that they are giving money to somebody and they want it back. However, what's interesting, and not a lot of people know this, is that when somebody takes out a loan at the bank doesn't give that person existing money. Instead, it creates new money by entering the loan amount into your account. And this is called debt-based money. Debt-based money. Now, this system relies on trust. It relies on trust, a great verb, to rely on something. So you promise, or the person promises, to pay back the loan, and that promise gives the money value. And most of the money in circulation, most of the money in the world today is created this way. Not as physical cash, but as numbers in bank accounts. A couple of key phrases here are central banks control the money supply by setting policies. Now that's quite a complex sentence, probably for a lot of people listening to this. If it's easy for you, that's great. But it's central banks control the money supply, how much money is in the economy, by setting policies. And interest rates determine the cost of borrowing money. So if interest rates are low, the percentage of money you have to pay back on your loan, if these interest rates are low, then more people want to borrow more money. But if the interest rates are high, then fewer people want to borrow money. So that's an overview of the evolution of money, dollar versus gold, and how money works and how it is created. Let's now talk about spending money and talk about some common expressions you can use in English when you're going to spend your money. The first one is this: blow money. And this means to spend money carelessly. It means you don't have a budget. You don't think about, oh, should I spend this or should I not spend this? Instead, you blow your money, which means you spend it all carelessly. For example, my friend blew all of his money on a new car. I could say my friend spent all of his money on a new car, but by using the word blow, it means it wasn't a good decision. He blew all his money on a new car. Now, I'll leave all the phrases that we talk about today in the description below. The next one is tighten up. Tighten up. This means to reduce your spending. So you can imagine that you went on a great vacation. You spent a lot of money. You come back and you say, I need to tighten up after our vacation. I need to tighten up after our vacation. The next one is to splurge on something. To splurge on something. And this means to spend extravagantly, to spend a lot of money and to enjoy that process. And it usually means you're going to spend more money than you should or more money than you have to. For example, I feel like splurging on a new sound system. So I know I shouldn't spend too much money on it, but I just feel like splurging. I feel like spending a lot of money, going extravagant and buying an expensive sound system. Now, in real life, when you're going to talk about spending money, you can think about your spending habits and create sentences to describe them. So, are you somebody who blows money on things you don't need? Or do you try to tighten up after a trip? And what was the last thing you splurged on? So, practice creating these phrases and sentences yourself. Use episode 53 to help you practice that. Or I'll leave a link in the description where I talk about how to use AI to create new sentences that are personal to you. Now, we've talked about spending money. Let's now talk about saving money. And saving money is another important part of having these financial conversations in English so you can sound more natural. So I have 3 phrases for you. The first one is to put money aside. To put money aside. And this means to save for a specific purpose. For example, I'm putting money aside for a new car. I am putting money aside for a new car. The next one is nest egg. Nest egg. N-E-S-T and then egg. And this refers to money saved for the future, especially for when you're older, for when you want to retire. For example, you might say about your friends, they've built a nice nest egg over the years. They've built a nice nest egg over the years. And then this is one you might have heard before. To save for a rainy day. To save for a rainy day. And this means to save for emergencies. It's an idiom because we're not actually saving money for when it rains, but it means to save for emergencies. For example, it's always wise to save for a rainy day. It's always wise to save for a rainy day. Now, are you somebody who likes to save money for the future? And are you putting aside money for anything in particular right now? These are the type of things you can think about when you're talking in English about money. Now, the next one is quite similar to save, but it's different. And you'll understand why in a second. It is investing. Okay, so we can talk about some investing money phrases. And investing is all about putting your money to work to earn more money. So you invest in a stock, or you invest in real estate or bonds in the hope that it will grow in value over time. Because when you save money in the bank account, a lot of the time in your regular bank account, you don't get interest. If you have a savings account, you get interest. But to buy things like stocks or cryptocurrencies or real estate, this is called investing. So there are some key terms here. Stocks. These are the shares of ownership in a company. For example, I invested in tech stocks last year. I invested in tech stocks last year. And the next one is portfolio. Portfolio. This is a collection of investments. For example, you might hear people say, it's important to have a balanced portfolio. It's important to have a balanced portfolio where it has different stocks, different cryptocurrencies, for example, and it's balanced. Now, some everyday phrases about investing are, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now, you might hear this in terms of everything in everyday life. It's quite common in everyday English. And it means that don't put all of your money into one stock. Because if you do that and that stock fails, you have lost all your money. So what it's saying here is to spread your investments to reduce risk. That's what that phrase means. You might hear somebody say, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to play it safe, which means you're going to choose low risk investments. And the opposite of that is to take a gamble. I'm going to take a gamble, invest in something risky, which means it could fail or it could give you high returns. It's going to be a good investment if it works out, but a terrible investment if it doesn't. Now, when we're talking about investing, we can use some conditionals here. For example, if I had more money, I would invest it in real estate. If I had more money, I would invest it in real estate. Or if I had more money, I would buy more Bitcoin. Now, I've got 3 more topics to talk about. The last one is everyday money idioms and expressions. But first, we're going to talk about debt and loans. So I'll talk about this a little bit more quickly as we talked about debt before. Now, we mentioned interest rate before, which is really important. And this is the cost of borrowing money, usually a percentage. But one specific term that's important to know is a mortgage. And listen to the spelling of this. Mortgage. Mortgage. But we say mortgage. Mortgage. And this is a loan specific to buying property. For example, most people have to take out a mortgage in order to buy a house. Now, here are 3 everyday phrases about debt. The first one is to pay off. So to pay off a loan means to completely repay that loan. So, for example, people might pay off their credit card debt, which means they pay off all the debt for the credit card. And maybe things are working well for you when you say, I'm going to pay off my car loan today. I'm going to pay off my car loan. Another one is to be drowning in debt. Drowning in debt. And you probably know that this is a negative term, and it means to be overwhelmed by debt, to have so much debt that you feel overwhelmed. For example, we're drowning in debt since Paul lost his job. We're drowning in debt since Paul lost his job. Now, the next area is a hot topic in many different countries, and it's this, talking about inflation and rising costs. Talking about inflation and rising costs. Now, inflation is simply the rise in prices over time, which means that the value of money decreases. And it's important because it affects everyone. It changes how much you pay for groceries, rent, and even big purchases like cars and homes. And it's been a big topic in the news recently, so it's important to understand this. So here are some key terms and phrases. Firstly, inflation. So again, this is the increase in prices over time. For example, you might hear someone say, inflation has caused prices to go up significantly this year. The next one is cost of living. The cost of living. And this is the amount of money needed to sustain a standard of living. For example, the cost of living is rising in many cities at the moment. Or it's important to think about the cost of living if you're going to move to a new city or country. Now, this is more of an everyday phrase, more conversational. Someone might say, prices are going through the roof. Prices are going through the roof, which means that prices are rising quickly. An example might be, gas prices are going through the roof. And another one you might hear people say is, I can't afford to eat out anymore. I can't afford to eat out anymore. And this is because the prices in restaurants have increased so much that that person doesn't have enough money, or they don't have enough in their budget to eat at restaurants. So to eat out means to eat at restaurants. You're almost there. Let's continue with the last one. And this is everyday money idioms and expressions. And these are fun ones too. So English has so many idioms about money. These are some of the best ones. Now, the first one is something you might hear a parent say to their child, and it's this. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money doesn't grow on trees. And it means that money is limited. The amount of money that that parent has is limited, so they need to spend it wisely. The next one is to make a killing. Make a killing. And this means to earn a lot of money. For example, he made a killing in real estate last year. He made a killing in real estate last year. Or he made a killing in the stock market recently. He made a killing in the stock market recently. Did you notice the intonation and stress with that one? The next one, which I really like, is to throw money down the drain. To throw money down the drain. This means to waste money. For example, buying that car was like throwing money down the drain. Buying that car was like throwing money down the drain. So, we've covered quite a lot in this episode, and hopefully you have found it useful. What I highly recommend you do now is go to the description and read the sentences, the phrases, and the idioms that we have talked about in this lesson. That way you'll be able to practice these phrases and then create sentences either by yourself or with using AI or with a teacher that are very specific to you in this area. That's going to help you use the correct type of English and make it specific to you. Then continue listening with me on this podcast. I have many different episodes here, so listen to some old ones, to some newer ones, whichever ones that you think are going to help you. If you're watching on YouTube, there are hundreds of videos here. So again, just go through the channel and take more English lessons with me. And then one last thing, if you found this useful, then share this video or episode with a friend. Send it via WhatsApp and tell them to check it out. Thanks again for being here, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.